So, sorry. Wait.
This is not uncomfortable, but it's very weird.
This is the thing?
This is the one.
Absolutely. And now it almost couldn't have happened in a better way.
Where do you want to be?
So it was just like,
Am I funny? Now if I go over here, am I still funny?
Better strategy.
Yeah, way better.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, so work.
I don't see it 5 years from now that you're not my most famous friend.
You really have to commit to something. Good to have someone pushing you.
That's cool. That was really cool.
Yeah, it might be cool.
This is On the Cusp.
Hello, and welcome to On the Cusp. I'm Ben Green, and today's guest is Dan Lippert. He's an inspired improviser on the Herald Team Winslow at UCB. He is the tallest member of the sketch group Big Grande, and he was really fun to talk to. This week's episode is sponsored by Thai Pepper at 6219 Franklin Avenue. You've got to try their seafood radna for $7.50. Thai Pepper. Who needs a tiebreaker when you've got Thai Pepper? So one of the surprises that came out of my interview with Dan Lippert is that I didn't know that he had done a guest star role on the TV show Workaholics, and he got to do that pretty soon after graduating from college. It's an interesting illustration of something that I really didn't know in high school and middle school and growing up, which was when I thought about what life in Hollywood would be like for an actor. I thought once you got your guest star role on the TV show Workaholics, then everything else was handed to you on a silver platter. But that's not what happens. I think that thing is a cool thing that you can say and put on your resume, but nothing really magical happens after that. It doesn't end up being a guarantee of getting an agent. It doesn't end up being a guarantee that more shows like that will come afterwards. You just have to keep on doing all the things that you're doing to make the next thing happen in whatever weird way it ends up happening. I think I learned this myself when last year I had one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me happen. I got cast in a small role as a video game executive in a Disney movie called Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day, which has been released recently. And I thought, okay, I just got a movie role. My life should probably be really easy from this point forward. But no agents were chasing me down. I asked friends who had good agents if they could refer me, and they did, and that didn't make anything happen. It's not that it won't end up maybe being a part of the puzzle that leads to cool things happening eventually, but it also might not be. And that's just one of the hard lessons I've had to learn from being in Hollywood. You can get your role on the TV show Workaholics, you can get your role in the movie Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day, and me and Dan are still really scared that things aren't going to work out for us. But we are encouraged, we feel lucky for the good things that are coming our way, and you can hear us talk about all of that in this interview. So here's my interview with Dan Lippert, who is such a tall person, who has such a deep voice, and is a really great guy. I was curious what you thought. I've been getting different opinions of like what this podcast should be altogether. Because basically my conceit with it is that these are people who I all like kind of think are going to be really successful someday. Already kind of are.
Thank you.
And just like people who are probably not at the level yet where they would be asked to do WTF.
Right.
But I think it's interesting to get like what they were thinking about right now.
Yeah.
Or like what, you hear on WTF a lot, people talk about what it was like to be anxious.
Yeah.
At this age.
And we're currently anxious.
We are currently anxious. We're like they say like, oh, I was worried it might not work out.
Yeah.
And right now we're currently worried it might not work out.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think Ricky Lindholm has like, she's in Garfield Notes. Mm-hmm. She has a podcast that's like, if like WTF is like that step, hers is like the next step down usually, like, not like success wise, but like it's usually like a little more process. I think she has is like her thesis was kind of like people don't know how people got to where they are, and like that was kind of the point of it, like what the steps you took. So this feels like the next step down from that, like people that are currently going through the process.
I might call it a step below Ricky Lindholm.
Below Ricky Lindholm. I definitely mean quality-wise also.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that sounds like an interesting idea. I like interview podcasts already. So.
If you were listening to the Step Below Ricky Lindholm podcast, what would you want to hear out of it?
I feel like you're pretty close to the idea that I would think I would want out of it.
Would you, like, so on WTF, the format is usually you hear, like, they banter for a few minutes, and then you hear, like, then he goes, like, so, what did your parents do for a living?
Right.
Where'd you grow up?
Yeah.
Oh, I grew up near Arizona.
Yeah, near Arizona. Yeah, I feel like...
And then he goes to their current stuff.
Yeah.
And now he sort of almost does just, like, more of a filmography, which... Instead of like the best part of the show, which was him fighting with people and apologizing to them.
Yeah. Like, explaining why he was so mean to them for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then being like, I didn't think I was being mean to you. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like that take of like banter into like interesting stuff. My instinct is like, does anyone care about me bantering? You know what I mean? But maybe they do. People usually... will put up with anything interesting. I don't know if they'll seek it out, but they'll put up with it if it's like something that they're told is good. Does that make sense?
Yeah, my aspiration is to make something that people will put up with.
yeah, put up with.
Tolerate as much as possible.
Tolerate. No, but like I like bantering stuff, but like I wouldn't seek out like a podcast between like James and Eric if like I didn't know who they were already. You know what I mean? I
don't want to embarrass you, but James and Eric is currently number 1 on iTunes.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm so out of the loop. But like, I think the casualness, like, it is like the thing that makes the ideas interesting is probably like the casualness mixed with like interesting topics, so it doesn't feel like a forced interview.
Yeah.
It feels like people are actually talking as themselves. Which I like.
So, Dan.
Yes, Benjamin.
So you're from Arizona?
Yeah.
I grew up near Arizona.
That would be either New Mexico, Utah, Mexico, or California.
Oh, New York City. I grew up in New York City.
Oh, you didn't grow up anywhere near... You grew up where Arizona iced tea is brewed.
I love it.
You grew up near the Arizona iced tea plant, then.
The U.S. is not that big.
You don't think so?
No,
yeah, I grew up in Tucson, which is like one of the southernmost big cities in Arizona.
That's where you were born?
No, I was born in a town called Page, which is on the Arizona-Utah border. It's like a tourist town. It's right by this lake called Lake Powell, and this big dam called the Glen Canyon Dam, which powers, I think, like Las Vegas, some of Las Vegas, California, and Arizona. The Colorado River feeds into it. Anyway, it's like a classic small town, and my parents owned, when I was born, 1 motel there, and then by the time we moved, 3 motels that they had built.
Good motels?
Kind of like standard middle of the road motels, like definitely not hotels, but like everything you would need from a motel on a vacation.
What was it called?
The Navajo Trail Motel.
Is there any Navajo in them?
In the motels?
Your parents?
In my parents? No, neither of them are Navajo. But like Page is right by a Navajo reservation, so that's like the population is like Mormon, Navajo, other religious fanatics, and then we were one of 2 Jewish families in the town, and that both from like with Jews from Israel, interestingly enough, which I feel like is weird for that.
So both your parents are from Israel?
No, my mom is. My dad was from Minnesota. And my mom met my dad in the 70s when she was at Lake Powell. Like she was just visiting from Israel, and this guy was swimming the lake. Like he was doing the stunt of it for whatever reason. And my dad was like captaining the main boat that was like the hub for it, and my mom and her friend were volunteering on it. And then she met my dad that way.
Did she have an Israeli accent?
She didn't know. She barely knew English.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So she met him and he probably didn't speak any...
He didn't speak any Hebrew, no. I honestly don't know the, like, courtship between them. I don't know what exactly happened.
It sounds really sweet in this version where she's only speaking Hebrew and he's...
It is a pretty sweet story.
Sounds like the recent episodes of Louis.
Yeah, it is like Louis. She knew basic English, but like I don't think there was no communication at all. But I think it was like she still has a relatively thick accent. I mean, she speaks English fine.
Can you imitate it at all?
No,
okay.
I'm very bad at imitating. We did an improv practice where I tried to play my mom, and it was very unsuccessful. I have like no real concept of how to do her accent. A lot of people think it's French when they hear it.
But I feel like there's overlap between Hebrew or like what would you call it, a Hebrew accent? Or an Israeli accent?
Israeli accent.
An Israeli accent and French.
Yeah, there's a lot of like thinking like type of things that they do. At least Israelis do, and I think French people do too. And I think like THs can kind of come out like Ds. Like there is a lot of there's like a lot of that.
Do they both speak fast?
Yeah, Israelis speak really fast and really loud. They're like they're very obnoxious when they're like having a standard conversation.
And French people are obnoxious too.
Yeah, I'm not willing to say that because I don't have any French in me.
My French teachers were all obnoxious.
Okay. They were all French people also?
No. Actually, people who speak French are all obnoxious. So I went to the UN school, so like a good number of my French teachers were Vietnamese.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the UN school? There's like a school for people in families of UN?
Yeah, a lot of my classmates were diplomat children.
Who was a diplomat in your family?
Nobody was a diplomat in my family. We just were right next to the school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I was like in the minority of people who had no ties to the UN.
So it wasn't like it just happened to be the UN school. It wasn't like the UN had a school that they put on. Like if
it was affiliated with the UN.
It was affiliated with the UN.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That must have been like an amazing education.
Yeah, and a very interesting, unique experience where you're in the minority, like where every single student is in the minority, because like there's just as many white kids as there are Japanese kids, as there are like kids from Ghana, as there are kids from.
That's cool.
Any other country.
It's a true melting pot. Who is the most like unique ambassador friend? Like
I dated the daughter of the ambassador, like to the United Kingdom.
That's cool, man. That must have been a great person to date. I'm imagining she's like a dream girl to me, like a British.
She was a lunatic.
Oh, really?
She was like this Scottish girl who was like really into sadomasochistic kind of stuff.
Holy cow!
She ended up. It was like a lot of stuff I wasn't ready for. And she was like, she was very druggy. I couldn't understand hardly anything she said because her Scottish accent was so thick. But I thought she was really pretty.
What an intense relationship.
My friends didn't think she was pretty. My friends were like, it was like the first experience of a girl that like my friends were like, she's not that cute. Like, don't. And I was like, I really think she's cute. I think I'm going to do this anyway.
Do you have a type? Did she look anything like Madeline does?
No.
No.
But she looked more like my old type.
Really? Your high school type? You were kind of into
my high school type. I liked girls who looked like a little bit punk and like were like tiny punky Brewsters.
Punky Brewsters, not punks.
Tiny punks.
In 8th grade, there were 2 Dans in my class, me and Dan Miller. And for some reason, the teacher didn't want to have two kids named Dan. So she decided that I was going to be called Punky. And I honestly don't remember where on earth that came from. It's such a weird, stupid nickname.
You were going to be Punky?
Yeah.
Did it come from anything?
I can't, it must have been like, I think it was something along the lines of like last year we had two students with the same name and one of them wanted to be called Punky. So like maybe that's where it came from. I don't remember now, though.
I love you as a Punky.
Yeah. I was Punky, and then in high school I was Big Julie, because there were two big... I was Big, and there was another guy, Dan, who was Big Dan. So my teacher started calling me Big Julie instead, which is from Guys and Dolls.
And you were aware of that reference?
I was aware of the reference. That was more like playful, like that teacher and I had a playful, fun relationship.
That's nice.
So my class shirt... There's senior class shirt, everyone's name is on the back, or they could pick a nickname. So mine says Big Julie on it.
So did you grow up, like, experiencing Jewish stuff?
Yeah, my mom was like, it was very important, especially in Page, because it was like such a culture shock for her. It was like really important to keep us in the tradition that she had grown up with, because like she grew up on a kibbutz where they were atheists, like her family was atheist. But they were still like very traditionally Jewish, so they still celebrated all the holidays.
And is that kind of what you were being given, like this atheist version of Judaism?
Yeah, I mean, there was never until I could like talk in any sort of educated way about it. There was never any talk of atheism or anything like that. But it was more like the focus on tradition, not like the like fear of God or anything like that, or the idea of God having an effect on your life was like non-existent for me. It was just
whereas most Judaism is just the fear of God.
It's all fear. Yeah, it's the fear of mom, which is like a God thing at the end probably. But my mom was just like, and so even in Tucson then, like she would try to have all our friends over and like teach them about the religion. She was like very into like teaching them about the traditions and like what they would like. What each holiday meant, but we would never go to temple or like do a whole long beginning to end Seder and all that bullshit. It was just kind of like more like talking about the meaning behind everything and like why it exists.
Were these friends Navajo and Mormon friends?
I had I was only in Page till I was 6.
Okay.
Or 5. I had a friend named Big Ben who was a Navajo kid, and then my friend Darren, who they weren't Mormon or Navajo. I don't remember what they were. They were like Christian. And so like we were like we were like a little threesome of 5-year-old kids that ran around doing stuff.
So you had to leave that Big Ben and...
Yeah, my mom forced my dad basically to leave Page. I think he probably would have stayed there for a long time.
For any reason?
It was just like... It's a small town, like, people there don't, like, my mom, like, really valued education and, like, wanted us to get a good education, and, like, I think my brother was kind of bullied for, like, being, like, smart-ish, and Jew-ish, or at least, like, wasn't, you know, I don't think he loved his school experience there. I don't know if he was actually bullied, and it's just, like... You know, she could see that it was like the classic small town where it's like you could be stuck there forever. Like a lot of people we knew, like kids we grew up with, ended up like getting into drugs or all that bullshit, meth and like stuff like that, or like having like their high school pregnancy rate there is insane. So she really wanted to move and kind of like moved my family to Israel. And that, like, was a mess because it was, like, a huge culture shock for my dad, and, like, it just was never going to work. And so then we moved back to Page, and then we moved to Tucson. I don't really know why Tucson. I think my dad had lived there in the 60s, and I think just, like, knew that it was a place that he could live again. So we moved there when I was 7, and that's where I mostly grew up.
And do you remember your childhood as being pretty much happy?
Yeah, I had a great childhood. There were like 3 years where I was like the biggest shithead in the world. Like, my friends still make fun of me for it. My mom would like teach us Hebrew school. She was like me, my friend Zach Timon, my friend Evan, Brad, and this girl Gabby. And I would like flip off my mom. This was like 11, 12 years old. I'd like say fuck you to her. Like, I was like such a little prick. And I have no idea where it came from. I could have been the biggest shithead in the world, like today, I'm not.
You have no idea where it came from?
Looking back,
this rebellious feeling?
I think looking back, it's because like my dad was going back and forth between Tucson and Page because we still had the motels there, so he would be gone a lot. So I'm sure it was some sort of reaction to like the lack of structure. Like he was definitely the one that I was like did not want to make upset or like wrong in any way. Not that he was just he had like gravitas, so you didn't want him to be mad. And my mom, I think, was just like, it was very chaotic for her and she didn't know how to control me, I think.
Did you feel bad while you were being kind of bad?
No, I feel bad now. I think I was just a little shithead. I don't know what my deal was. I was just like acting out, I guess.
And also really smart at that time?
Really smart. I think I was a relatively smart kid, yeah. I think I was always like near the more educated end of my class, but like less motivated. Yeah. So,
ever skipped homework and stuff like that?
No, I would do homework. I've always been really good at like getting by. Like writing a mediocre paper and getting an A on it. Like I'm not because I'm some sort of genius, but just because like I think I know the basic system. I know how to read what teachers want, and so I was always good at just like fulfilling that and never actually like challenging myself. Creatively.
As a 12-year-old, did you have anything that you felt passionately about?
I think I already was like really into acting. Or like not acting necessarily, but like comedy. Like I watched The Simpsons religiously. I watched SNL a bunch. I was doing like, we had drama club and I would do performances where I like did the van down by the river scene, and I did like a lip sync, a cross-dressing lip sync to I Will Survive.
Sounds fantastic.
We did 12 Angry Men and I chose to play my character basically as a poo. Like I was just like an Indian guy, and the character's not written Indian that I played, but it was just like
which juror?
I don't even remember which juror it was. I was 12. Yeah, I can't remember. And then like me and my friend Evan did like the Simpsons like I'm Only a Bill. Did you see that? That was like making fun of Schoolhouse Rock. It's like a song.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we did that in like a performance. So that was like what I was into. It was shit like that.
Was your voice as deep as it is now?
I had a ridiculously high voice for a while, and then I think I went through. I think I had a relatively late puberty, but I was like in choir in high school, and my teacher told me I was tone deaf in choir. I think my voice probably got lower around like senior year.
Were you a tenor?
No.
When you were in choir?
What was I wasn't. So it's like bass, baritone. Is tenor above bass? I think I was a tenor then, yeah. But yeah, I don't know when, because I wasn't the tallest until probably junior or senior year of high school.
Whoa! So that was like a fun surprise for everybody.
I was tall, but I wasn't the tallest until then. Okay. Like I announced basketball games, like I was on the court side, like doing that, and I was taller than the tallest kid on our team. But was just.
But didn't want to play?
I wanted to. I didn't love the coach, and I was doing theater, and so you couldn't do theater and basketball. Like, you couldn't commit wholeheartedly to both of them at the same time. So announcing, I could still like go to the games and participate, but like you didn't have to practice and all that stuff, and be athletic and good.
Were you funny as an announcer?
No, it was mainly just it wasn't color commentary. It was like literally announcing to the people in the stadium. So just like this guy scored this basket. Like foul on whoever, that type of
I would have really liked to hear color commentary.
I did one color commentary of a women's game. Me and this kid, Steven Katz, who happens to live in LA now and act, which he didn't at the time. And we used to, we announced a game together. And so that's probably out there somewhere. I would love to listen to that. I'm sure it was awful.
This sounds amazing.
I'm sure I was so bad. Me announcing high school women's basketball must have been the worst thing to listen to in the world.
Did you feel right then like I'm gonna grow up and be a comedian and like try to get on Saturday Night Live or stuff like that?
I think I wanted to be like Mike Myers. I wanted to be like, Jim Carrey, those dudes. That was kind of the goal in high school. I was like, that's what I want to do.
And did that goal stay consistent through college, or did you ever have a period where you were like, oh, that's impossible?
No, I feel like goals shift. At least for me, I start tempering my goals with what I think reality is. Because it starts as like, I want to be the biggest comedy actor in the world. I want to be like, whatever, Jim Carrey, Mike Myers, Will Ferrell. And then it's like, that might not be possible, but I want to be, a famous comedian. I want to be known for comedy. I want to be famous and in movies. And then that turns into like, I want to be on a TV show. Like I would do a show. And then that like becomes like, I would love a guest star role. And it's like, I could be a commercial actor for a living. I could just like make commercials and then like still perform in live and all that. That'd be great. And then it becomes like, I would love to just be in a writer's room for anything. So I think you just like...
Until you get to, I'd love to be the funniest guy in an office.
Yeah. I'd like to be like, at least once a week make everybody in the office laugh. Maybe not the funniest guy. But it occurred to me recently when I was having one of those meetings with a manager that's like, you have to put your best foot forward, and he was like, where do you want to be? Like, what's your actual goal? And I had to like reassess what the truth was, not like what the goal that I tell myself is, so that I don't feel bad if I don't achieve it. You know, but like the actual, what would be the coolest thing that you actually
Because you don't want to tell that manager you're very adjusted.
Yeah. I would love to have been on an episode of The Office.
That would have been sweet.
So if you can make that happen. But you have to like readjust and like really like what is like the dream goal, so you can actually like take the steps towards that one. Like you can't achieve a goal that you don't actually like admit that you have. But in college, high school and college, I was like taking theater in college. And the whole time was just like, I want to be a comedic, famous for comedy.
Cool. When did the like giving the finger to your mom stuff fade away?
Just middle school. It just like stopped around middle school, I would say. Probably when my dad was around more, if you looked at if you matched the timelines, is what my guess would be.
There's an exact correlation between your dad being around more.
I'm sure, because there's no way I would have acted that way around him. I think I just became a normal kid. And then it was just like, I never really acted out with my parents. Like in high school, like the biggest thing I would do is just like, I would be upset that we went on a vacation over the summer because I couldn't hang out with my friends, so I just wouldn't talk to my parents for the whole vacation. I wouldn't be mean to them, but I would just be like mopey.
Did you remain a person in high school who was just getting by school-wise?
Everything it feels like for a while, everything I've done where it has ended up being like a cool, fun thing, someone has had to push me into it. Like, I never auditioned for plays until our theater teacher, Mr. Erb, cast me in Noises Off without auditioning because someone else dropped out. So he cast me as like an understudy because he like was trying to motivate me. And then I didn't audition for the next round of plays, and someone dropped out of Into the Woods, so he cast me in that. And then so finally I started auditioning for stuff and actually being motivated and like doing the work and getting the roles. But I even think like going into comedy and acting, like part of it is because it's just easy to me. Like it's the thing I have to work the least at to feel like I'm good at it.
Were you also a reader growing up?
I wouldn't say I was a reader. I read. I was more of a TV watcher.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Like I watched a ton of TV. It's insane that I'm not like a crazier person. Because I watched a lot of TV. I watched like Jim Carrey and The Cable Guy amounts of TV. Like when we had to read in middle school, you'd have to like count your pages and turn them in. And so I would always read Garfield books. Because you could read like 200 pages of a Garfield book.
So you're very well versed in Jim Davis.
I've read Garfield Choose the Fat. I've read Garfield I can't remember the rest of them. Bigger and Blacker.
That's a Garfield?
Yeah. Garfield Larger Than Life. No, I can't remember. Choose the Fat was the only one I can think of off the top of my head, but I had like all
9 Lives.
That's not one.
That's one.
No, I'm just kidding.
Dan.
No, I believe you.
Not now. Don't call me out now.
Feel free to look it up. And then I had like a Beavis and Butthead book, so I would like read that.
And were these page counts accepted?
Yeah. I got it. Like, they let me get by on them. I don't know how.
I kept thinking these were biographies of James Garfield.
Yeah. James Garfield, Choose the Fat. James Garfield, 9 Lives. But yeah, even with like reading in school, I could get by pretty well knowing the basics of a book and writing a paper about it. Like if you listen in class, you can then write the paper about the book. Because it's like, yeah, I get what happens here. Like Frankenstein makes a monster. The monster is a metaphor for the Industrial Revolution. Monster ends up on some sort of ice thing floating away from Dr. Frankenstein in Antarctica.
You're all set.
Yeah, that's a paper right there.
What do you think was the coolest thing about you as like a middle school or high school student, like other than being a good performer?
I really prided myself on being chill. Nothing got me razzed up or anything like that. I felt like that. And I think like I wouldn't have ever said it at the time, but I thought it was cool that like I was not friends with everybody, but knew everybody and was friendly with everybody. Like I wouldn't have personally been comfortable, but I could have like gone to the cool kids hang out and felt fine there. And like I could have gone and hung out with the theater kids and felt fine there. And I was on student council and like felt fine there. I think I was like, that was something I took personal pride in at the time. I was like, yeah, this being generally chill.
Yeah. That's a cool trait.
Yeah, but I didn't have, it definitely didn't pay off in high school in any sort of satisfying way. Like, I didn't have a girlfriend at all for all of high school.
But don't they see how chill you are?
Apparently not. I went to my senior prom in sweatpants as a protest because it was on the same night of a play I was in. And I was in student council with the guy that was planning the prom, and I was like, you motherfucker, Greg. You're
going to pay for this.
You're going to pay for this by me not having a date and showing up in sweatpants and not having a good time.
Then you'll see.
Then you'll understand what you did wrong. What else did I think was cool about myself? I don't know. I really liked my group of friends also. It was like my parents had a 2-story house. And so we would hang out in the bottom level of my house in the basement area, and so kids could come over through the back and would never have to see parents.
Oh, cool.
Which is like a big thing when you're going to hang out.
Yeah.
It's like you don't want to have to fucking deal with someone's parents. So people would just come and go from my place, and we had like a circle of friends. It was like 14 or 16 kids that would come and go, and we would just like play poker on the weekends. We had a pool table there, like listen to music and bullshit, I guess. We watched Dirty Work a bunch. Watch Big Lebowski a bunch.
You sound really cool. I just realized
is that cool?
It had never clicked to me that nobody wants to see my parents. I think if a friend came over, I'd be like, come over here. Let me show you my parents.
Yeah.
You'll love that.
You'll love to see my parents.
Then we'll go.
Maybe your parents are amazing. Maybe you're right. My parents are great, but like people were super intimidated by my dad. He was, because he was old. And he was big, like huge hands, tall guy, like very like strong looking guy. And so we were in high school, he would have been in his 80s. So it's just like, I think when you're a high schooler, you don't even know how to connect with that type of person. So my friends would just be like, Mr. Lippert, hello? And like try and walk downstairs. And like he didn't want to talk to them either, I don't think. So it was a fine relationship. And my mom was great and friendly and whatever. So like,
how did your relationship with your dad evolve through like the next few years?
Of like high school?
Yeah.
How did it evolve? It was like, well, my senior year, he owned apartments in Tucson that he rented out, and he fell off the roof of one of them. So he was in the hospital for like the first half of my senior year.
Wow.
And like in physical therapy and stuff, and it was like kind of close for him at that point, and like so he was like in and out of a wheelchair after that for the rest of his life. My relationship with him was like pretty. I mean, he grew up in the 1920s in like a farming family, so he was like one of those just like not super emotional relationships, but like, you know, we were close and we talked and like, you know, it's not like we would hug and say I love you and all of that. It wasn't like a totally cut off relationship, but it was definitely very like, you know, talk about whatever the basketball team, like the Wildcats, and tell him about school. And he would every day like read the paper front to back, so he would like tell me whatever was going on in the paper that he thought was interesting, or like stuff like that. He never watched movies really. I don't think he was in a movie theater for the last like 40 years of his life. So that wasn't.
So you couldn't relate on the movie The Cable Guy.
We couldn't talk about The Cable Guy at all. He would like. I remember he got really pissed off once when I was in college and we were watching Big Lebowski, and he was. I was watching it with my mom, who like loves that movie. She loves the Coen Brothers, and he was just like, "What is with this goddamn language in this movie?" Like this was like furious every time they cursed in it. I remember. He had like really arbitrary things that he hated, and I guess that was one of them. But like my parents were, I think because my dad was older and my mom was like Israeli and didn't really understand the culture. Like I watched the movie Commando religiously when I was 5 years old, which is like Arnold Schwarzenegger kicking ass, and blowing things up. Like I watched Terminator 2 when I was like 7 or 8. Like I think that just was something that they didn't understand or maybe care about even.
Yeah. All that stuff was floating in your head.
Yeah, it was all in there. All that Schwarzenegger action.
And you have a good relationship with your mom today?
Yeah, we're really close.
Cool.
Yeah, we talk like every day. She's still got that like Israeli Jewish thing of like has to be like she'll call me and I rarely have anything to talk about. So it's just kind of like, yeah, everything's the same. She called me a couple weeks ago to insist, because the guy that voiced Tony the Tiger died. Okay. So she called me to insist that I need to be the next voice of it, and like she was like in a panic. It was like, I just heard it on NPR. Like you gotta tell your agent about this and do this. I was like, yeah, okay, thank you.
Parents are always right about that stuff. If we just would listen.
Yeah. If I was as motivated as my mom.
Your agent would make a few calls.
And then I'd
be in front of Kellogg's doing your audition.
Richest man in the world.
So then where did you go to college?
I did 2 years at the University of Arizona, and I was in their BFA acting program there, which is a probationary program. So they can cut you out of it after the first or second year. And I got cut after my second year. So I took a year off of college and moved to San Diego with my brother, and then did 2 years at USC in their school of theater.
So now your career from this point forward is all revenge
against
getting cut from that.
It's 100% spite, absolutely. I was ready to quit acting before I got cut, and then they cut me, and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to prove you wrong now. I was about to go into broadcast journalism. No, it was like, I was actually really glad to be out of there, and it was a huge blessing, not even in disguise. Like I knew right away it was a blessing. I was like, oh great, good, I'm not enjoying this, and they can probably tell, and that's why they cut me. And it was like I didn't want to be a classic theatrical actor, and it was like classic theater training, and it was done by a bunch of people who hadn't worked in the acting industry for 30 years, which is like such a weird thing in college theater programs where it's just like, I feel like you can learn the same type of acting from anybody. Like that, everyone can teach it. But if you're not learning it from people who worked recently, like I think things change so much that like that's the type of advice you want, is like someone that actually knows what is happening now.
Yeah.
And is like, because like all college theater prepared me to do was play like 65-year-old Russian men in plays for old people. Like,
I mean, if you go into your, Campbell's soup commercial and you don't know how to do Grotowski, you're gonna be screwed.
You're gonna be screwed, especially if you can't, do the beats of it, think of the motivation, that like really have the character backstory, you're fucked. But yeah, it was like, I wasn't a leading role guy, and none of the plays they picked were cast 20-something-year-olds anyway. So it was, and it's same with USC for the most part. It's like I was still playing like old Russian men almost exclusively.
In what plays?
I was what's the play? I'm forgetting them all now.
Is it Chekhov? Or
No. I wasn't. It was one was A Month in the Country.
Okay.
I played like a Russian dude. It was a. Have you read that play?
No. Can you do a line from it?
I can't remember any of it actually. I didn't have a ton of lines, but it was like the comedic poor Russian servants in this house that was all rich people. What's that comedy?
Which nothing would relate to the student body of USC.
Yeah. Yeah, they came and laughed at the poor Russian servants, and they were like, that reminds me of my Mexican servants. They told me that. That's not
Really?
No. No, nobody talked to me about that. What? I just want to remember it for the sake of memory. It was by Hart and Kaufman. What's that play? Fuck. I played a Russian in it. Whatever it was.
You really did specialize in Russians.
Yeah. I could do an Eastern European, Russian-ish accent. I specialized in bad accents that they said were passing, I guess. I played Chief Bromden in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the big chief.
What was your voice for that?
I think it was something in this world where it was a measured way of talking, but there was a little bit of more sadness than what I'm doing now.
Not that far from Brad Garrett on Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah. One of my friend's dads used to call me, what's his name in that show, Robert?
Yeah.
He called me Robert because of that guy. So I guess my voice had gotten low enough by senior year of high school that someone would call me that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for that compliment. I like his voice.
I like it too. Hey. You deserve a lot of compliments.
Oh, thanks. I'll take them all. You too, man.
Thanks.
Cool couch.
It's not that cool.
It's got an L shape to it. It's comfortable.
It's really scratched up in the back.
Oh, really? Cat scratch fever?
And we didn't... I love cat scratch fever. The thing you say about a cat that's been too scratched by a cat.
Yeah, this furniture's got... If you post it on Craigslist, just say it's got cat scratch fever. I think it looks alright.
No, nobody's gonna buy a couch with cat scratch fever. Maybe with cat scratches, but not with cat scratch fever. That sounds worse than bed bugs.
Yeah, it does actually. You should. Yeah, if you put.
I don't want to buy anything with a fever. Yeah. I want to buy a Fabergé egg that has a fever.
What is it? Cat scratch fever is a sex thing? Is that right?
I don't think
Ted
so.
Nugent song.
I think cat scratch fever is that if certain cats scratch you. You can get this horrible illness called cat scratch fever that comes with bad fever. So you think it's like
a zombie type thing or something like that?
I don't think it's paranormal. I think there's really... I think you can get a bad fever from getting cat scratches.
Is that true?
That's what I think.
The Ted Nugent song, it's all a bad metaphor.
I'll check it out and post a follow-up.
It's one of the Garfield books.
Cat scratch fever? James Garfield, cat scratch fever.
Yeah, he was like FDR had polio, James Garfield had cat scratch fever.
And that's how he died, famously. Had a very short term.
He was the only president to die of any sort of cat scratch fever in the White House.
So USC, at what point did you meet Justin? And Jacob is also there?
Yeah, Justin. There's a group there. There were 5 improv groups at USC. So I had also the summer that I had taken a year off, had taken classes at Second City in Chicago, and had discovered long form improv basically.
And did it blow your mind?
Yeah. It was like the classic. I was doing short form at U of A, and then saw. TJ and Dave in Chicago and went nuts for it. I saw this show called I think it was called Practice Shooting a Bear or Practice Scaring a Bear with TJ Miller and what's his name? Thomas Middleditch, and that fucking blew my mind. They did like just a 2-man, like traveling through the world show kind of thing. I saw the Improvised Shakespeare Company. It was mostly I.O. stuff. I saw stuff at The Annoyance, and that all blew my mind because I just read McNapier's book. And it was just like, oh, okay, this is fucking cool. This is like really good comedy. So then there was a moment where I was going to move to Chicago, but it was like, I'm not going to live in a city that's either hot or snowy all the time.
Yeah.
I love the city, but...
And then a revelation that, like, the stuff you grew up loving is so much more tied to this kind of preparation than it is to Meisner and Grotowski.
Yeah, for sure. That is a good... I haven't thought of it that way, but, like, yeah, that's, like... Everyone I knew came from that background, not from, classical theater training. Greg Kinnear also got kicked out of the University of Arizona theater program, though. So.
And he proved them wrong.
Yeah, he absolutely did. He hosted the Talk Soup show, so, he's got it. So that was like, I was like, maybe I'll start a long-form theater in San Diego. Like, when I was living there and there was no long-form, I was like, maybe I'll just start a theater. Like, it hadn't taken more than... I took 2 weeks of Second City classes and was like, I could start a theater in this. But yeah, so I came out here, took a groundings class, loved the teacher. I had Drew Droege, and like he's so cool and was amazing. But I just like, the program didn't seem like something I wanted to do. And then just like had seen some shows at UCB out here and kind of discovered that. I saw like Naked Babies with Rob Corddry and Brian Husky and John Bowie and Seth Morris. And like that blew my mind, like again, because it was like, then it was this element of like seeing people who I actually knew were successful doing these shows. Like at the time, like T.J. Miller and Thomas Middleditch hadn't done anything yet when I saw them in Chicago. But so here it was like, oh, okay, there are people that like work in comedy to also do this kind of stuff. So that was really cool and interesting to me. And there's that aspect when you move to LA of that like celebrity fucker, even though these are like not celebrities, but it's like, whoa, famous person that close to me is like, it gets to you even if you want to be a cool guy.
Yeah.
Like, it's like... It's
cool to see that the units of separation aren't that many.
Yeah. And like, you train yourself to be cool about it or to care less because it's so common. But like when I was like 21, it was like, whoa, yeah. So anyway, I went to USC.
Yeah, I had a Del Close marathon in 2006.
Yeah.
Like, it was just crazy, like, getting to chat with, like, Ed Helms and Jack McBrayer backstage.
Yeah, I can imagine that would have just been, like, especially, those guys, too, are, like, both
What kind of weird world is this?
Yeah.
Where this happens organically.
These, like, people that you would, like, actually consider to be in the realm of heroes of yours, or, like, not far away from being peers, also, which was, like, really cool. So, there were 5 improv groups at USC. There's Second Nature, which is the one I ended up on that did long form. There's Cometus Interruptus, which was short form, and that's where, like, the Good Neighbor guys came from, like Kyle Mooney, Beck Bennett, and Nick Rutherford.
Were they contemporaries?
No, they had graduated before I'd gotten there. They were contemporaries of Jacob and Justin's, because they were there all 4 years, but I only met them through those guys. And then there was a group called Vidushaks, which was all they were all Indian, so they would do half of their improv in Hindi and half in English.
Wow!
And they were amazing. Like 60% just funny and 40% like the idea is just insane to watch. And then there was like an all girls improv group, and then there ended up also being a these theater people started a like Shakespearean improv group that Haley Huntley was on and some other people. So anyway, I auditioned for Second Nature and Cometus Interruptus and ended up going on to Second Nature. And there was a story that I stood up in the audition room for Cometus Interruptus and said that I would rather be on Second Nature. I have no idea where that came from, but it always tickled me. I like stood up and did that. But like, so that was an 8-person group, and Jacob Reed was on it, Justin Michael, and 5 other funny, cool people that you just wouldn't know, so I won't say their names. And so we did UCB style long form, and that was like, those guys were my friends at USC. Like that was my crew, and like we just most of my senior year was skipping like a neuroscience class with Justin that we had both signed up for at 11 a.m. And like I would meet him at his house, we'd walk halfway to class, and then be like, you want to do this? And he's like, no. And then we'd go back to his house and play video games. We'd play like whatever he had, whatever Nintendo system he had. Yeah, and so
as the neuroscience class happened.
And we signed up for it with our friend Zach also, who would always show up to class and then we would bail. And so he would just be sitting there alone,
looking around,
quietly looking around for us. Yeah, but he was like a painfully polite person, so he'd just be like, okay, whatever, guys. Okay, cool. Like, he was on the improv group with us too. So that was like the genesis of like my real like improv on my feet training there. It was like having those weekly shows for audiences of like 60 students to 100 students or whatever. And we ended up doing, there was this festival there that we planned that was in its like 5th year when I got there, called the Fracas Improv Festival. And it was an international improv festival where you get, only students would come from all over the country and perform Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night and take workshops with like UCB people, Groundlings people, IO people, and then there would be like panels on comedy and on improv with like Ed Helms did one, Brian Husky, like Matt Walsh and Ian Roberts did one. So it was like we had become huge, insane improv nerds. Like mostly Jacob Reed was my way into the nerddom of improv. Like he knew everything about everybody, and I was like super passionate about it. And like we kind of started like hero worshiping like Convoy and those guys. Like that's when they were winning the cage match before they had a show at UCB, like a regular one. So we would go see them. And like, yeah, I remember like Drew DeFonso Marks was the artistic director of UCB. That's when I knew UCB was like totally for me, because not only were they like just like sensibility wise like the thing I liked, but like out of UCB, IO, Groundlings, all the theaters we contacted for that festival, Drew DeFonso Marks and then Neil Campbell were the artistic directors of UCB, and they were so like understood the festival. They were like, this is so cool, like anything you need, we'll get you in touch with our teachers, we'll get you like, they got us in touch with the Human Giant guys like Rob Ewell and Paul Scheer to do like a thing there. And so it was like, oh, these guys actually care about it, and it was like so clear that it was a passion of theirs, not just like Groundlings would never respond to our emails, and like we barely get in touch with them, and there were still cool teachers from there that did it, like Brian Palermo would do it, and Drew Droege, and like really funny, great guys, but just I got the impression that the system of the school was different to me.
That's so cool though.
Yeah.
And was Fracas a good like hookup opportunity?
It was. It wasn't for me because I had a girlfriend for most of college that I met through a play that Justin wrote called Turkey Goose, which was a play as if it was written. It was the tale of Thanksgiving as if it was written by 9-year-olds. So I played a big tree with leaves, and I met my girlfriend through that. She played Tonto, and she was Japanese, so she played Tonto as a relatively offensive Japanese stereotype.
Wow. But she had the right to.
Yeah, she had the right to. I think it was her choice. I don't think Justin was like, do this, but a little more like this. And so we were dating through any of the main hook. Like, we would also go on tour up the coast and perform with other college improv groups. And those theoretically could have been like great hookup things, but like we all had girlfriends at the time.
And you dated her until when?
Until we moved in after college and dated for a year after.
And is she the last serious girlfriend?
She's the last serious girlfriend I had, yeah. That was like just my lesson. Of course, saying this to you is not a tale that you'll agree with, but my lesson was like, getting a serious relationship too young is just like too much for me. Like I wasn't like, we moved in together and I was like, what am I doing? I'm like 22 and I'm like I'm definitely not going to get married to this person. I want to date more people.
So was the transition from college to adult life like pretty, did there feel like there was a big difference between college life and adult life, or
Well, I don't know if a lot of people do this, but I had a year basically that I associate with just not the most fun, not giving a shit ever. Like, I was waiting tables. I couldn't afford improv classes yet. I didn't really know how to go about the world of acting. So I was taking workshops and shot one thing for TV what
was that?
Workaholics.
Cool.
I took a casting director workshop, and then the casting director called me in for that.
What was your role on Workaholics?
It was an episode where they took mushrooms and thought they were being robbed, but by people who were just IT guys. So I was an IT guy that they tied up and thought was robbing them.
Awesome.
It was really cool, and it was we shot it before the show, a year before the show came out even. So it was a weird little, I thought it was going to be nothing, and that show ended up being huge, which is cool. That was also I shot a TV show, now I'm going to just keep shooting TV shows all the time.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. But it was a cool, that happened right, that week that I shot that was the week my long-term girlfriend and I broke up also. And so then there was a few months of just figuring it out, what exactly to start doing. And it wasn't until I started buckling down in UCB classes, I started interning at UCB, kind of expanding my friend group and hanging out more, that things just kind of started moving forward for me.
How many times did it take you to get on a team at UCB?
I got on the first time I auditioned. Which is
oh yeah, there's a rumor that you got on a Herald team, pulled up from a class.
We pulled up from 301, yeah.
But that didn't happen.
That did not happen. I wish it had. That would have been cool. I actually wouldn't want that, because then everyone would be watching you being all right, prove yourself. But I have no idea how. I can only imagine that Berg started that as a prank rumor, because I can't imagine a student just casually saying it, or another performer without actually having heard it.
Somebody dreamt it and then thought they'd heard it.
Yeah. They're yeah, that's true. But it was so cool, because I was getting to the point where people I idolized were saying cool, nice things to me. Before I was even on a team, it was there was I put a lot of salt in people I respect being nice to me, kind of more than you probably should. You should just be happy with who you are. But I was in 401 the week, and I was graduating 3 or 4 weeks after auditions, and you couldn't audition if you were in 401 at the time. And so I emailed and just politely was just hey, I'm not being presumptuous. I don't think I'll make a team, but I know it'll take me a few times to audition. Since I'm graduating in a month, could I audition just to start getting reps in and whatever? And Alex Berg sent me the nicest email afterwards of just and he wasn't even AD at the time, but was hey, your name came up and we talked about it, and it's not going to happen. It wouldn't be fair for everyone, of course, but just know that people like you and think you're funny, and keep doing it. And little things like that were so huge for me, and motivating. So I had a year basically when I was done with 401 of just working on getting better at improv. And there was an element of it then, before there were a ton of indie shows, of just getting good through getting reps and practice groups and classes and stuff, so that the first time people see you, they're oh man, that guy, they never saw me, people saw me grow a ton, but they never saw me at my worst, because I spent so much time kind of under the radar, it feels
and being in college. And
where now I think with so many indie shows, you can see someone going from bad in the sense of just inexperienced to experienced and good, and you just gain so much with confidence and stage. A year is a lot of time if you're doing improv every week or every day or whatever.
Definitely.
So I think there was an element of that too. And I tried to, when I auditioned, I wanted everyone that I was auditioning for to know who I was. I took classes with the people that I thought were good, so that I could learn from them. And I also wanted I wanted them to have to say no instead of have to say yes, if that makes sense. I wanted them to be you don't want to be go in and do well and have people be but I haven't seen a lot of him. Like, so I don't know if that'll be consistent. You want it to be like, oh, I've seen a lot of him and he had a bad audition. I'd rather that than the other way around.
Totally.
Yeah, so that, yeah, that was a long answer to that question. But a relatively interesting story, I think, is, so Herald auditions happened. I auditioned for Winslow the day after my dad passed away. Like, he had a heart attack. And so he was in the hospital for like 4 or 5 days in Tucson, and I drove down there, and he passed away on a Thursday, and then I like flew out on Friday and auditioned. And I felt like there was like an energy I had that weekend that was like, oh, I gotta kill this. Like, I was like very focused on it and everything. So that was a weird week of my life.
Yeah, a lot of things happening all at the same time.
Yeah, a bunch of like major changes.
Yeah, I'm sorry that happened.
No, that's it. Thank you. Yeah, that's not. It's one of those things that like, you forget that like it's hard to hear for other people. Also, like you deal with it your own way, but I can like mention it casually without feeling bad about it, and I forget that other people are like, oh, that's a huge thing. Like, which is also probably just a way of, for me, of like ignoring dealing with it every once in a while. It's like not putting too much salt into it conversationally.
What were your expectations for Herald, and like what you felt like it would do for you?
I feel like the year before, I had seen like someone like Anthony Gio go from like a guy who I knew was pretty funny to a guy I knew was amazing. And it was just from him having like a year of experience on a stage in front of a full audience, practicing every week, performing every week, getting notes from the people who are the best at what they do. And so I was excited to like have that experience of like, I feel like, happy with where I am, but like just the amount you grow from having an opportunity is like what I was really looking forward to. And like Alex Fernie was our coach our first year, and it's like, he's just amazing, and like you learn so much and like grow so much. I mean, it's like, you start playing up. You're always playing up. You're playing like to the better, people on your group, to the better coach, the awesomest coaches who really care about you, to like audiences who are like really savvy. And so you grow, I think, exponentially through that. And I was like looking forward to having that opportunity.
Yeah. How many years were you working in like that restaurant? You were working in Karl Strauss, yeah. Karl Strauss. Karl
Strauss is a great name, whatever that is.
You were working in Karl Strauss for 2 years after you got on a team, or less?
I was there. I graduated from USC in 2009, and I quit that job in 2013. And I got on Winslow in 2011. And
was there a certain amount of frustration for those 2 years that you were like still having to do that kind of waitering night job?
You know what? The frustration was more my first 2 years there. By my last couple of years there, I had set up my schedule beautifully for exactly what I wanted. I was making just enough money to like eat food, pay for gas, and pay the bills. And that was perfectly fine for me because I didn't want to be there 5 days. I didn't want to be there Saturday nights. I didn't want to be there when the money was the biggest because I wanted my own free time and my own sanity. And like had the luxury of like bartending there during the day was relatively fine money if you live a small life. So the last couple of years there weren't that bad. It was like the meaning of having the job is worse than what the job is. Like, just the implication of waiting tables means that you're not making money doing comedy yet.
Right.
So I think I hated that more than I hated waiting on people. I don't mind waiting on people. I don't mind being like in the service industry. I kind of like it actually. But I just hated the experience of knowing I had to go to a job that wasn't the job I wanted to have as a career.
But then you got to leave it because Friendship All-Stars friendship happened, right?
Yeah.
And so how did that come about?
So Justin and I had this idea. Justin was talking about how he really wanted to do a Guillermo del Toro impression. He thought, and like we both loved him, and I was talking about how funny Ron Perlman was to me, just his existence as a human, I think. And so we were trying to figure out how to do it, like doing a live show as them, or like just recording something. And I don't know whose idea it was, but then we just started talking to like Harry Chaskin, who Justin grew up with as old friends, and I met in college through Justin. And Harry was an animator and director at Stupid Buddy Studios, doing stuff like Robot Chicken. He had worked on Frankenhole at I think it was called Shadow Machine, which became and then started being made by Starburns. But anyway, he had done a ton of animation, and he's a fucking genius. He's like a really talented, smart, creative guy. And so the three of us started talking about trying to make a Ron Perlman and Guillermo del Toro TV show where we voiced Ron and Guillermo. And kind of developed the characters as kind of this odd couple where Ron's just a big doofus and Guillermo's this like overexcited, like a gregarious Mexican director. And so we just started playing with that and improvising it, and wrote and recorded like a 3-minute short. And Harry took it into the guys at Stupid Buddy Studios, and we put the radio play to a storyboards, which is called an animatic. And we took it into them and showed them that, and they were like, okay, cool. They were also trying to get Harry to come animate on Robot Chicken. So they're like, if you come animate for us, we'll also give you the space for 3 weeks to make this. So Harry animated it himself over 3 weeks. We reached out to people he knew to make the puppets. Harry worked really hard and made the puppets. We painted the sets and stuff, and just made a short. And then it ended up people really liked it, and so we tried to pitch it as a TV show, and then learned that parody laws are such that you can't just make a ton of money off of someone else's likeness in a TV show. So we ended up pitching it as a web series and taking it to that place, El Studio, which is a Lexus-owned production company, and they bought it, but parody laws are also such that you still can't make a 10-episode web series about 2 people. So we took the idea of kind of like weird celebrity buddies and made 10 different episodes of it with like Ira Glass and Garrison Keillor and Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart and all that.
I feel like you guys doing that show and it being so good like was a personal revelation for me, because it made me go like, oh, that's more what the dream is than like getting staffed on a show as a writer. Like I had always thought that was like the best thing that could happen would be like getting to be a staff writer on a show. Yeah. And I saw that and I was like, these guys are getting to create their own thing and run it. Yeah. And it looks like like the most fun. It was the most fun. It was amazing. And it really was an example. It was the first thing I made that was like the thing that I was passionate about, and it was a really weird idea, and it was also the first thing I got paid to make afterwards. Like, it was the first thing I made for free of just like, let's follow this through. And it was the first thing someone paid me for, and it was like the biggest lesson of just like, oh, just make what you think is funny all the time. Yeah. Instead of making what you think someone else wants, or like, it's like, well, I want to write on The Office, so I'll make a web series that's similar to that, or like whatever, where it's like, if you're putting all your time and free energy into it, you might as well make the thing you want and then have, the whatever Brooklyn Nine-Nine people see it and be like, hey, do you want to be staffed on my show? Or someone else see it and be like, hey, this is too weird, do you want to create a different show? It was kind of like a revelation for me too, of just like, maybe it was just dumb luck also that it happened to be a fun, good idea at the right time, and everything I make from here on out will not get made. But like, the only lesson I can take from it is that it worked, and I would love that to be my whole life, is either failing miserably at the thing that I think is really good and funny, or having it turn into a thing. Yeah, but I mean, it just feels like between that and like all your stuff with Big Grande and your Herald team, you're just like killing it right now. Thank you. That's really cool. What percentage of the time, like these days, do you feel really optimistic? Like you're definitely going to have the career you want, and what percentage of the time are you scared? I'm scared all the time. Of just like, I'm pretty certain that I'm going to at least make a living doing comedy. There's a million different ways to do it. I could be like 60 and be just teaching classes at UCB, and I'd be happy. You're a shoo-in for that right now. By the time you're 60. Yeah, by the time I'm 60, they'd have to let me, at least by the rule of just like, well, he's been around long enough. About 30 years. Or no, 40 years.
40 years. Yeah, I could be a good teacher in 40 years. I'm certain of it. I just burped, sorry. I'm like, so just generally, like, the coolest thing is being friends with the funniest people right now. Like, I am constantly thinking about, like, what's going to happen with my life and what I'm going to get, be doing. But, like, just through comedy, I know, I would say, at minimum, 50 people that are really cool and easy to be around, and the funniest people, some of the funniest people I think in the world, and the most talented people. So it's like, that kind of gives you the faith that something will, worst case scenario, fucking, Tarver and Rosenberg are going to have their own TV show and at least let me be staffed on it. At some point, you're going to have, like, an amazing Hamilton 100 sketch show and I'll be able to contribute to it. Like, it's all those little things that are, like, that gives me the faith of, like, whatever I'm doing, I'm making stuff with the coolest, funniest people that I've ever met.
So that in the end, all of it comes down to not burning your bridge with Rosenberg. Yeah.
No, he's not going to be successful, actually. I think he's just... all I have to do is be friends with him, but not so close that when he gives up on comedy, I'll feel like I have to be still friends with him.
Really good, better strategy.
Yeah, way better strategy. But, like, I'm sure, like, do you get that? Like, there's that constant... There are people that you get jealous of sometimes. They're like, oh man, they're having a lot of success. But, like, most of the time I see people around me, like, doing really cool, good things. And I'm just like, the fact that I know the person that's creating that is just awesome to me.
Me too.
And, like, I'm so happy for... I almost feel like I'd be bragging more if I said, like, how cool my friends are than if I'm bragging about things I've created.
Yeah.
Like, because it's just like, I don't think people are that lucky for the most part. You're lucky to have, like, 2 or 3 good friends, and I feel like on any given night, I could, like, find people I love and hang out with them. Yeah. And, like, laugh with them, and like, not even do much and have them crack me up.
Absolutely.
That's
how I feel, cool. Man. I feel lucky to know you all together.
Yeah, you too, buddy.
And thanks for coming to talk to me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope this
is really fun.
Is a cool thing. I mean, I know it's a cool thing, but I hope my interview is a cool thing.
I hope it's a cool thing.
Yeah, dude. Good luck.
Thanks, man. So, that was my interview with Dan Lippert. I really hope you liked it. If you want to see Dan perform live, you can see him almost every Monday with his Herald team Winslow at UCB. Check the UCB calendar to see his next show with Big Grande. And you should really go to www.friendshipallstars.com to see the show he created with Justin Michael. It's claymation. He does a lot of the voices in it, and it's an awesome show. Special thanks to my producer, Cece Pierce, to Casey Trela for all the music in this episode, and to our sound editor, Joe Burge. This has been On the Cusp. That's your outro music.